Welcome to the Revenue Room. I'm your host, Rachel Bryant. Join me each episode as we dive into the strategies and insights of top CMOs and thought leaders, uncovering the tactics that transform ideas into revenue. Whether you're a seasoned marketer or an aspiring leader, the Revenue Room is your go-to source for actionable advice and industry trends. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and enjoy this episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Revenue Room. I'm thrilled to welcome Inverta's own Kathy Macchi today. You know her as a marketing powerhouse, and especially with her expertise in ABM. But today we're going to discuss one of Kathy's new passions, blending sophisticated marketing strategies with cutting-edge AI. At Inverta, we believe that AI isn't just a buzzword, it's a game changer, and will be the future of marketing to drive real, measurable results. But we also know so many of you are struggling to know where to start, or how to incorporate AI into your team's day-to-day. Today, Kathy is here to provide clear, actionable advice to help you get started with AI in your organization. In this episode, Kathy will share why AI is crucial for staying competitive and how you can begin integrating it into your marketing strategies today. From gaining a basic understanding of AI to providing training for your team to finding small AI pilots to test in your organization, Kathy's insights are your roadmap to success. One caveat that I'll note, we are recording this discussion late August 2024, and things are changing so rapidly in this space. So I'm sure if you're listening 6 months from now, something has sure to have changed. So grab your favorite note-taking tool and get ready to talk AI with us. Welcome, Kathy, to the podcast. Welcome, everybody, and we're really excited to have Kathy Macchi, who's from Inverta, on the podcast today. So, Kathy, welcome to the Revenue Room.
Thank you, Rachel. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, well, we're really excited to have you, and I'm really excited about the topic that we're going to talk about today, and that is around how marketing leaders can really start to get started with AI in their organizations. And I know that you've done a lot of work and research around AI, its impact on marketing, and work with a lot of marketing leaders who are really struggling to figure out where do I start? And I know you've got some really great nuggets and tidbits for our audience today, so I really want to get into that. But first, first of all, I think we should introduce you because everybody knows who Kathy is, but maybe not everybody knows who Kathy is.
I'm sure that's not the case. Yes.
Yeah, I'll let you introduce yourself to the audience, and then we'll dive in from there.
Well, Rachel, I like to always introduce myself as a long-term survivor of the tech industry. And in a long time, I've sales, marketing, and IT experience, so I actually understand all this tech and data probably better than a lot of marketers.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's great. And I know you've helped a lot of companies, a lot of marketing leaders over the years in various roles and in different ways. And so I know many are excited to hear what you have to say about AI, this sort of new frontier for marketing ahead of us. So can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing from a challenge perspective? Well, let's talk first about the opportunities about AI for marketers and sort of how you see the future shaping up. Maybe not about specifics, but just like why do we need to pay attention to it?
Well, I think the future of marketing is human plus machine. I mean, probably my belief is next 1 or 2 years, 80% of what we do as marketers will be AI assisted. And so I think everyone is going to think now is AI is going to be infused across marketing, whether it's from campaign strategies, research, competitive analysis, persona campaign development, creating content, creative reporting. So like it is here, and there's like, it doesn't matter what your role, your background, your seniority is. Everyone's going to figure out how do I use AI to better do my job? And there'll either be marketers that are leveraging AI 1 or 2 years from now, and marketers that aren't. And the marketers that aren't are going to be left behind. I just don't think it's an option now. Well, however you feel about AI, it's sort of like when the internet came out, like you could either get on board or not. And the sooner you get on board, I think the better you're going to be, the better off you'll be with your career.
Sure. Yeah. And there's so much potential, right? All those things you listed.
Yeah.
Those are so many great ways for us as marketers to just get more efficient about what we're doing and even better at it. Um, although it can scare people, right? We talk about losing jobs or like replacing people, but there's always opportunities for other things. I know that you talk to a lot of marketing leaders, and a lot of them are really struggling with, how do I adopt AI in my organization? What are some of those barriers that they're, sort of facing? What are the reasons why they're struggling?
It's interesting. There was a report out recently on CMOs. And every year there's reasons why CMOs have the hardest job. They have the shortest tenure on the C-suite staff. But this was a really surprising report. And it was like between the budget constraints and the revenue pressure across the board, all CMOs said they've never felt it like they have this last
Mm,
year or so. And so I just think the immediate stuff gets your attention. And this is not immediate yet. Like, no one's yelling at you, oh, go do AI. And so I think that I think you'll be kicking yourself a year from now that you haven't done something. But I also understand they just don't have the mental space. There is such pressure everywhere else in your org that you just don't have the mental space. But all I say is if you don't have that mental space and energy, find a thought partner, find a consultant, find someone, a company that can help you be informed and how you can accelerate adoption. Because if you don't, you're really cheating yourself and your organization. They're not going to be prepared. And so I think that just needs to happen. But I also understand it's like they're just burnt out right now. I mean, what
mhm.
was the stat I saw? Like CMO jobs from last February to this February, there's 62% less listings. I mean, so it's just tough out there on CMOs. And they've all had their budgets cut and revenue pressure is going up. So,
Yeah, so there's only so much they can pay attention to and put their sort of
yeah,
energy towards and have their teams focus on, right?
yeah,
Uh, yeah, to your point, what's in the immediate? The board's yelling about pipeline or
right.
sales, all those sorts of
They don't
things,
want to
right?
hear about, oh, I saved 2 hours a week doing this with my team. Like it will be a year from now. It's not now.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense too. So I know that you have some steps that you provide leaders with to get started. Can you talk a little bit about what's that first step? Like what's the first thing they can go do?
The first thing I always tell them, but they're always surprised is they're like, oh, we're not really using it much in our organization. I say, just take an informal poll. And consistently comes back, it's like, oh my God, like 80 or 90% of people are using it. Like just take the poll and say, are they using it? What are they using it for? Maybe what tool they're using. And then the second thing I tell people is you need to get hands-on experience. You will not be able to lead your organization if you don't do it, because it's not like other software. Like AI does not work like software. And that I think is the surprising part. Like software, you do this, this comes back. This acts like a person, as odd as that sounds.
Yeah.
And so until you learn, and I'll tell you, I don't think prompting is a long-term skill people need, but is a short-term skill you need. How you interact with AI is a learned skill right now. And you need to learn to do that. And it was interesting, as Ethan Mollick is a professor of management at Wharton, and I follow him. He has a great Substack on AI. He has a new book out. I think he said, sort of like the 10,000 steps. He goes, arbitrary, but take 10 hours and use AI and use in an
Mhm.
area that you have an expertise in. So you can tell what it's good at, what it's bad at, so you can shape its capabilities, because then you can be a judge of it. And it's more than just, oh, I poked at it one evening and, I gave it. And what people do is, oh, I asked it a question, it gave me something. Or I asked it to rewrite something. Like it's learning how to have that extended conversation, learning how to interact with it. And once you feel comfortable with that, then I think you're comfortable then taking it out to your org. But until you do that, you're just sort of at a loss and you're not going to come up with good use cases. I think it's good. So I think getting hands-on, you've got to actually do it. So find someone that can do the training for you or take a training. Like there's so many people offer training,
Yeah.
like anyone can do that for you.
Well, and like you pointed us to here at Inverta, like it just guides that some of the base,
Yeah.
sort of platforms put out, say, hey, if you're in this role, here are some prompting sort of things
Yeah.
that you can bring to the table
Mhm.
and just play with it. I've found that just doing that has really opened up my mind to different creative ways of using AI tools. And Oh, I never
Absolutely.
thought about that I could do it that way, and I have found different projects that I have been working on that I've even if it's just writing an email or if it's, creating some sort of deliverable for an internal project we're working on, like, really just finding ways to use it, getting my hands dirty in it has just opened up other ideas.
It totally does. I also think it's one of the areas where, as a leader, I think you set the tone from the top to make it so people want to use it, but that innovation is going to come from the bottom up. You know how to do your job best, Rachel. No one else can tell you that, like you know. And so if you have the tools and the means, you'll bring that innovation. You'll figure it out and you'll inspire someone else like, oh, Rachel's doing that. I can do that. And so I think the leaders, once they understand enough, they set the tone for that innovation, that experimentation.
Mhm. What's some of the training what's some of those training things that you would recommend? Like, what types of training are we talking about for your
I'm just
team?
I just think initially it's how to prompt. Like people still don't get that. They think they type in one thing and that's it. It's having that extended conversation, understanding what makes a good prompt. That, like I said, but that's going to be important the next year or two. I don't think it's going to be important long term because AI is starting to understand intent. So like things like I'm a experienced researcher, I'm a marketing development, like those things make a difference now. So the best training you can get is that, and then from there, I think it's more hearing what other people in your organization are doing. I think that inspires people, it gets them excited, it spurs them to think about ways to use it. But it's the basic training, like how do I interact with, where it throws people off. Because I've seen too many, they just think it's, I ask a question, it gave me an okay answer. This doesn't really work. And if you end there, you'll never get to what the value is.
Yeah, so it's really thinking about what are those use cases based on role, what your output is, and
Hmm.
where you can really leverage AI.
Yeah, it's totally where it is.
Yeah. Um, what are some examples of some of those pilots? You've shared some here internally as well, but for the listening audience, for marketing leaders, what are some of those small little pilots maybe they can get started on?
So simple things. You have all these products and you have to create a summary or all this content. You need a summary for the website. Easiest thing to do. Um, Transcripts that you get from meetings. Like I look at it as there's probably four things. You can use AI as an assistant, like doing a repetitive task. I always take meeting notes. I do this. That can be done. As a creator, draft content, anything that you're actually going to create, you can do a draft run. As a thought partner, getting feedback. Have it read something you wrote and say, look at this as a marketer who's just starting out. Would they understand that? Is there a better analogy I could use here? Like all that type of stuff. Have it vet. Like probably one of the best uses of AI is to pressure test and problem solve. Like AI gives you the best probable answer, but your job is to get past the best probable. You need to learn to prompt so it gives you something that's going to inspire you, something to elicit a better response from you. Like take this and review it and tell me where I've missed things. What else should I be thinking about? And then I think just AI as a researcher, that type of stuff. But those are the four areas. And I mean, it can go through to transcribe, generate, draft, analyze, any of that type of stuff. I think and I think a lot of people, I want to find something impactful. Do something small. Like look at the tasks like, and I tell people use cases. Look at the tasks you do all day long. Just write them down. And then are there ones you just don't like doing? Like get those done first. Don't take something you like doing. How many hours does it take you to do? Could AI help in any of those ways? And if yes, try to infuse it into what you do. I look at marketing, there's probably like, marketing loves their 4 Ps. I look at it as you could do it for planning, like anything around strategies. You could do it around production and creating stuff. You could do it around personalization. Take this blog post and rewrite it for this persona. You could do it around promotion. Look at these 2 landing pages. Which one will, tell me 4 improvements to make on it? Or just, performance type stuff, turning data into insights. Like those are the 5 Ps. Something you do is going to fit in one of those. Pick a small use case. Like don't boil the ocean. Pick something small, a narrowly defined good chance of success, and just build on it. I find if you're going to try something huge, it's too much. Do something simple.
Yeah, it becomes cumbersome when you start to think
Yeah,
about
and then
some
it's
sort
too
of big project.
overwhelming. It's just
And
like,
you're not seeing results right away, right? Either.
no.
So you're just not feeling that sort of the
Yeah,
wins,
yeah,
from it.
yeah,
Yeah. It's a great point. Um, you talked a little bit about like that creativity is going to come from sort of the bottom up. But you need some leadership to, oversight and like really those brainstorming sessions. Um, you've talked a little bit about an AI council in the past.
yeah,
Can you sort of unpack that and what your recommendations are around that for marketing
yeah.
leaders?
So I'll tell marketing leaders, even if your company has an AI council, you need your own marketing council. Now it ties into that. But marketing's probably the only department, one of the few, I should take that back because customer success, that deals with internal and external communication. So you have your own unique use cases, learnings, roadmap. So um, this group should be the one setting policy and guidelines, and I'll get into that in a bit. Like, how do you want to drive adoption, cross-functional collaboration? Marketing is siloed enough as it is. Like, how do you start looking at cross-functionally? Are they buying one tool, we're buying another? How do you give just visibility of what's happening across across marketing with that? How do you drive use cases? How do you basically you should be the voice letting other people in marketing know what's going on. Like there should be a council to do that, whether it's a newsletter, whether it's monthly meetings. But that's when you share those insights. I mean, it's just things like that. Like that to me, they drive the strategic implementation and the adoption of AI and infusing it across the organization. Like they're the body that can help do that.
Yeah. I will say that you have started an AI nerds group. We call it the AI nerds
Yeah.
here at Inverta, which I
I
actually
did
love.
not name it. I did not name
Fair
it.
enough. Fair enough. And a lot of what you're saying is what we do. We talk a little bit about like how do we think about our different roles and responsibilities and what can we apply. We go and sort of test different tools or,
Mhm.
use free trials, things like that, and then bring them back to the group and say, here's what I liked, here's what it did that was really helpful, and here's what I could see that, we could use that it could do better, right? Like,
Yep.
I think, or comparing different tools, things like that. And that's been really helpful. I think for me, being a part of that group, even as a more as a practitioner and probably less as a leader, but I know you as a leader of, at Inverta and how do we use AI is, really just, oh, I never thought about it that way. And then really just learning new use cases to go apply or, oh, well, I'm
Yeah.
going to try that tool. I think I now have subscriptions to probably about 4 or 5 different AI tools. I
Mhm.
probably need to go back and
Yeah.
review that because
Uh-huh.
it's changing all the time. By the way, one
It is.
caveat I forgot to mention when you and I are speaking here on August of 2024, as we record this, I'm sure 6 weeks from now,
Uh,
things will be a little different than what you
yes.
and I are talking about,
Oh,
right? And a whole nother
totally.
reason for the AI
Um,
council, right? So that you can stay
yeah.
connected to those changes.
But I think like the tools, they're like $20, $25 a month for most of them.
Yep.
And they're all better for different things. I think just picking one tool now is not the way to go. Have a couple. And if you cannot get $20 worth of value, like really? But I think what companies do is they just, and we can talk about, they don't have a good plan for that rollout. So like one company, they just got everyone this one tool and said, okay, everyone has access. And as at Chevron, some of these other companies, they've done case studies where like, well, I don't know if I got any value. Of course you didn't get any value. No one knows what to do with it. And
Yeah.
like, even I get on these calls inspired, like, oh, you just, there's new use cases all the time. There's new tools. And like the next version's going to do something totally different. One of our coworkers said, the AI we're using now is like the Ash Jeeves of like 1997. It is. I mean, this is the dumbest it'll ever be. So that's why
It's
when
true.
someone says, well, it didn't do that. It's like, yeah, well, give it 3 weeks and it might, like seriously.
Yep. Yeah. And the more you prompt it with different use cases that you would like to see, it'll learn
Yeah,
that that's what you're
it
looking for,
does.
right? Eventually.
It
That's really great.
Yeah. Frightening,
Yeah,
but yes.
that's interesting you bring that up because that's really ties back to having a good roadmap. So you can go through all the use cases in the training, but like And like you said, sort of chunking it out, knowing what you're going to do with the tools you're going to do, and like having a plan for it, some metrics to look at, and talk a little bit about what you would recommend around a roadmap for an organization.
I think there's a couple things. One, like for marketing, it's basically how do you make a smarter AI forward organization? And I think it's a 1 to 2 year dynamic plan. Tools will change. You have learnings from, adopting tools. I mean, a number of things are going to change. But in general, it should be a vision. What do you want AI to be in your organization? Just AI in your industry. Um, Things around an impact assessment, which I can get into shortly. Use cases, problem scenarios, innovation scenarios. Like use cases are going to be things like, this is what I do. Can this help me do it better? Problems are like, this is a problem we have. Can AI help? And innovation, like, we'd love to be able to do this. Is this possible? Then I think it's timeline, budgets, teams. Like every function in your org should have a plan. Here's the pilots I want to try. Here's the costs of them. Here are the phases. And it's going to get updated as you go. But at least people are, oh, well, here's where we are. Here's where we're heading. And I think without that, you end up spinning your wheels. You'll have 5 people that use it really well in your org and no one else.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone just
Yeah.
waits for them. Oh, Rachel does a good job. I'll see what she does next, and maybe I'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Um, Talk about that impact analysis, because I think that's key, right? For
Yes.
especially as a leader of a marketing organization, I think about when I was in that role, everything you do, every moment you spend during the day has to have an impact on, what your team is trying to achieve. So how do you do that? How do you understand what the impact is from
I
AI?
think you have to look at every job and what are all the tasks, and then really looking at where can AI assist, where can I do it, and where is some areas not. Like, oh, I can't use it for doing employee evaluations. Maybe that's never. But what are all those things? And then what's the options? Like maybe AI now can't, but in the future, if it had reasoning skills, if it could do this, like I think you just need to go through and think like, could 20% of your job or 40% of your job be AI assisted this year? And if so, what are those things? And I think you have to do that for every function in your org. But now you at least have a plan. And you can talk about with that team leader. Hey, for PR, here are the things we think. Do you agree? And then let people figure out what they want to do about it. Like I find most marketers are eager and excited to embrace AI. I think the organizations have let them down. Like education training is still, every survey that comes out, still the number one barrier to adoption. I think they don't have policy and guidelines to help foster adoption. And they don't have a near-term strategy about how they want to use AI across the organization and effectively implement it. And so I see pockets of people doing stuff, but that's where the leader comes in. Like, how do you take all that and get like you have all these people want to augment their productivity, their innovation, and they're just waiting for the org to sort of have the will and the vision to point them that way. And that's what
Mhm.
your job is. And
Yeah.
I don't see it happening a lot.
It's really about prioritization, right?
It is.
Because to your point, a year from now, it will be necessary for you to have done this.
Yeah.
And if you don't prioritize it now, you're going to be behind the 8 ball. And frankly, like to your point around the CMO market, and marketing leader market, if you don't have experience with the AI, you're probably not going to get the next CMO role, right? Like the organizations are going
That's
to
a real,
start looking for people with experience in this.
yeah, I think that's fair. Um, The other thing I was going to bring up, only because we talked about the AI Council, I think policies and guidelines are really important. And the only reason I say that, I think once you have those in place, people have the freedom then to experiment and innovate, and you bring transparency to what you're doing with it. But like, especially for marketing, that's why I think marketing needs one. Like, just on our own, we've discussed it. Can you use AI to create content? Like, I don't know, yes or no. Can you do it for internal? Can you do it for external content? If you use it for external, do you have to note somewhere that AI was used? What data can you share with these models? Like there's just a lot of things that I think need to be put down so people understand what they can use it, what they can't use it for. Besides all the privacy, all that other stuff. I mean, I think deciding those things is really important and making everyone understand.
Yeah, and that goes back to training too. You'll wanna make sure they're
Mhm.
trained on the
Yeah,
sort of the guardrails that they
right.
have, with
But I
using
think with
AI.
marketing, it's like I said, because it's external, like, do you have policies that even customers know? Like, we don't use our data for this. If it's AI, or do you have a rule where if it's AI, like we can use it in drafts, but it always has a human review it before it's posted? Like, what are those guidelines?
Yeah. Um, Kathy, quick question.
Yes.
What is your new favorite tool as of August 26th, 2024? What's your favorite tool right now that you're usually utilizing for AI that has AI capabilities?
So I always have Claude and ChatGPT up. But like for a tool in itself, I'm a big fan of 11 Labs. It can
Mm,
take any article, you take the URL, and it can read it to you. So if I'm going out somewhere, I can just hear the article. I don't know. It's simple, but it's just really nice. It's just a convenience.
yeah, and I have actually used 11 Labs a couple times, especially um, to your point, like reading articles or long PDFs or something like that, and you're in the car and you're just trying to be more efficient with your time. I love that. Claude's been really great as well for just creating copy. My biggest one that at least that I use on the day to day is Fathom, and it's records our
Yes.
calls, but then it gives me AI based to dos. It sort of summarizes everything really well. I found some other tools that don't summarize as well. And I find Fathom does a really nice job, but the interface is all sort of there together. You can watch the recording, you can find certain spots in the discussion. Even during a call, you can click to highlight a certain part of the discussion that you're having so you can, or create a clip so you can
Yep.
share it later with a colleague. I like that a lot.
I agree. I forget we use that all the time. So yes, I don't even think of that as AI now. But I will
Yeah.
take those transcripts though. And now we have a tool similar to ChatGPT that allows it to be private, so I'm not sharing the data. And I have it go through a lot of transcripts at once to pull out nuggets that I need from
Hmm.
conversations. And that has been incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, and I always feel I should say this, like using AI right now is like having a colleague who knows everything there is to know that's available on the internet, is incredibly patient, never gets bored. I mean, I can just go on with like very logical, not emotional, but at the same time, they make mistakes like 20 or 30% of the time.
Mm.
They hallucinate, they're overconfident. Like their goal is to please you. They'll just be very persuasive about this stuff. And so it still requires human intervention right now.
Hmm.
So, like when I go through transcripts now, I always ask it, please pull the quote out that led you to actually say this
Hmm.
because you
Yeah.
cannot trust it. It's like having a really good intern, you know, like you would not just take that from an intern. But again, just like an intern, the better instructions you give your intern, the better you're going to get from them, you know? I think when it's good, there's an interesting study, I think it was last year from Boston Consulting Group, where they gave ChatGPT to all their consultants. And they all did more tasks, faster and better. But what was more interesting to me was average consultants really saw the bigger gain than their superstars.
Mm.
And so if it can make me go from, like, if I'm an expert in something right now, I'll say right now, it's not going to be better than me. But in areas where I'm not as strong, if it can make me smarter, better, more genius like, yes. So I think that when people ask it, like, that's why I think for CMOs, if you practice, do it in an area where you have some expertise, you understand where it's good, where it's bad, and shape its capabilities. Understand that.
Mhm.
Because it's like, it's better than the average answer you would get from anyone. But it's not going to be the same as someone who's great at it. But, I make mistakes, you make mistakes, like
Yep.
you have to keep that in mind.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good tip. Well, as we wrap up today, Kathy, one of the things we ask our guests is exactly that, a pro tip. You've given a lot of tips today, so that's really awesome. But is there one, like, if somebody's listening to this, one actionable thing they can go do almost immediately to help them get started with AI? If I'm a marketing leader and getting started with AI in my organization?
I think really the best thing is get hands-on. Until you get hands-on and set the tone, like empower your team to use it and get some policies in place. But I also think the other big thing is, trying to use it as a thought partner. The goal of it is to get a better response from me. And don't just look at it to get answers. How can it get better answers out of me? How can I get it to critique more of my work? And I think people forget about that part. Like I said, they just type something in. And the other part I'll bring up, a pro tip, change management. The Deloitte survey that just came out, only 30% of AI pilots make it into production. And so now it didn't say why, but my guess is there's not a mechanism to roll those things out. Just like, Rachel, you and I come across that all the time. Like you have really smart people doing stuff, but getting it to scale. And I think that is going to be a huge pro tip, making sure you don't forget the rollout and the scale. And what do people need to actually start to incorporate it and infuse it into their day-to-day workflows? I think what they call like the AI master people, like they use, I think 3 or more tools. No, I think they incorporate into at least 3 of their workflows. They use paid tools, and there's something else and they're using it every day. So whatever you can do to get your team there, I think is going to be a real win for you.
Yeah. Well, those are great tips. Lots of them, Kathy, today. So thank you for that. And I know we'll have some great content around some of those actionable steps for marketing leaders coming out here from Inverta as well. So listeners, be on the lookout for that. But thank you, Kathy, for being with us today, and looking forward to maybe talking to you in like 6 months, and let's see where we are with AI.
My favorite tool then. Now,
6
Rachel, this has
months
been a
from then.
pleasure. Thank you. Thank you
That's
very
great.
much.
All right. Thanks, Kathy, so much. Appreciate
All
it.
right. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Revenue Room today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. For more, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Don't forget to follow Inverta on LinkedIn for more updates and exclusive content. That's Inverta, INVERTA. Have a question or a topic you'd like us to cover? Reach out and let us know. Until the next time, keep innovating and driving that revenue growth. See you next time.